Okay, I don't do intros in the show anymore, so I don't know how we're going to start this episode, but,
I think Anthony's gonna sing the theme song?
Freebie and the Bean! No, that's not the theme song. That should have been the theme song. Instead of Chingo and the Man, just Freebie and the Bean.
It took me a while to figure out what the bean meant.
Oh, yeah? Yeah? It's racism?
Yeah.
It's fucking racism. There's a lot of it in that. Oh, my God. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm your host, Chris Stashio, and I'm joined by my good friends. He is the host of the Wake Up Heavy podcast, all the way from the West Coast, Mark Begley.
Hello.
And all the way from way closer than the two of us realized the last time we podcast, the host of the Cult Movies podcast, Mr. Anthony King.
Hello, gentlemen.
What's up, Freebie and the Beg?
I'll take that.
I'll take Freebie. I'm down.
Yeah, God, yeah. So on this episode, we're continuing Buddy Cop Movie Month with a look at a movie that's racist in its title. Boy, I think that is an accomplishment, frankly. We're going to be talking about 1974's Freebie and the Bean.
How in the world did you guys stay alive till now? How do you get up in the morning?
Lady, the princess
You
is
have
here.
to come in here to have a fight.
Please, lady.
She nearly knocked me down.
Where?
She went in there. Hey, you can't go in there.
I spent half my life in silence.
What was going through your mind? Indecent exposure? Red Myers? Are you insane?
How about it? You got pushed off!
What are you doing?
Huh? I'm getting crazy up here!
Intelligence squad?
What were you doing at the Red Coach Motor Lodge last night, lady?
I was at the school meeting in
Oh,
the
yeah?
auditorium last
Yeah?
night.
Your car was at the Red Coach Motor Lodge!
So what?
You apologize about my gun. You apologize to this. Apologize about my gun. I apologize about your lip.
You're not fit to guard the fish at the aquarium.
If you had with our help an airtight case against Red Myers,
an indictment in the grand jury. Would that
change your?
Would it help anything, sir? Everything for you.
Would that change things?
Would it, sir? I mean, would it change an airtight case, sir? Airtight.
For indecent exposure?
Here, something for you. Play with what
now
is
this is
sitting on the
nice.
front.
This is nice. We've been digging in garbage for 14 months, sir, and this is what we came up with. And
Is that enough?
It's not enough.
What would be enough, sir?
I need a witness.
No, we have
one, sir. There's a problem, a small
We have a
problem.
little problem in that regard, sir.
It's a small problem, sir, but and that is that Red Myers may not be alive on Monday, sir.
There's a contract out on him, sir, from Detroit Professional, so we have a major problem.
They want to kill him. It's a huge problem. I mean, how do you deal with the monsters?
We don't have one major problem. You know why we don't have a problem? I'm going to tell you why we don't have a problem. There's no problem here. Red Myers will be alive by Monday. You know why Red Myers will be alive by Monday? Because you boys are going to keep him alive until Monday.
Get him in there! Get his gun. Get it. Get his gun? He hasn't got a gun! What do you mean he hasn't got a gun? I'm telling you, he hasn't got a gun! Get his ID something, will you? Oh! He's a Cadillac salesman from Detroit! What are you doing here?
Me, babe, we go together, just like peaches and cream. Bees in a bar, birds of a feather, you and me.
Please get out of my office.
Sir?
He wants us to get him.
So the film is directed by Richard Rush, written by Robert Kaufman, and it stars James Caan as Freebie and Alan Arkin as the Bean. Two cops that don't get along. And that's
Or
like
do they?
Or do they? And that's like the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a plot, sort of. Is there? Questions will be answered. So, Anthony, since this is your second time on the show, I bet this is the first time you've seen this movie, though.
Oh, no. No.
Really?
No, yeah, I love this movie. I got the Blu-ray when Warner Archive put it out.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's who it. And it's one that I'd been wanting to see for a long time. I'd heard of it, but then I saw it for the first time whenever the disc came out, and have watched it a handful of times since. And I love this movie, even though there's so much hate in the movie.
Oh, I thought you were going to say hate in the movie. Yes, it is a film full of hate in a lot of ways.
Sure is.
What about you, Mr. Begley? I know this was your first time.
Yeah, this was the first time. It's one of those movies that's been on my radar forever, and it was streaming somewhere recently, and I just kept kind of going back and forth. Do I want to watch this? And then I'd find something else, and I think
you were just watching all those Rob Zombie movies and stuff.
Yeah.
You were just like, I gotta take a break, guys.
I think the main thing that kept me from watching it immediately, because it sounds like right up my alley. 1974, good year for movies. Buddy cop or cop movie, yes. And there's a movie that I'll mention a little bit here that came out the same year that's very similar that I like more. But I think the thing that was keeping me from instantly hitting play on it was James Caan. I'm not the biggest James Caan fan.
Whoa.
And his character in this movie is kind of the reason why I equate him with this kind of character.
It's kind of the only character that James Caan was playing for a while.
Yeah. For
ever?
a good while.
Yeah.
And it's not my favorite kind of character. So I'm like, is this what this is? Or is he going to be playing something different? And no, it's the same kind of gruff asshole, tough guy character. And it's like when we were talking about Sterling Hayden, Anthony, it's, he's made a career out of this. Darn good actor. If you like that sort of thing, he's your guy. It's not my favorite thing. Not my favorite kind of character.
I mean, this is within 2 years of him playing Sonny in The Godfather, right? So he's still riding that wave of that performance. And this movie, I mean, if you pitch this movie as Alan Arkin and Sonny Corleone in a car together, it wouldn't be too far off from the truth. Because that's, I mean, again, that's, like you said, that's this time in James Caan's career, he's doing this kind of thing, almost exclusively. And I liked parts of this movie, but there are also parts of this movie where I was like, this movie didn't have to be 2 hours long. You could have.
That's one thing for sure.
Whoa, yeah. I mean, I think for me, that's probably the thing that stood out overall outside of just the movie's plot was just how long this goddamn movie is. Because for a movie that's an hour and 53 minutes, it has shockingly little to say and does shockingly little overall to warrant an hour and 53 minutes, because there are stretches of this movie where it's just two characters talking for 10 minutes, and those are the better scenes in the movie, like outside of the chase scenes. But there's a lot of just like character back and forth to the point where if you took the chase scenes out, this is like a two-man stage show in a lot of ways. Like it almost, and in a lot of ways it's written that way. And if you read about the film, they're like, well, it was just kind of about the two guys in the car. And then we were like, should we put a plot? And they were like, I guess so. So, and sometimes it's one of those things where it's like, it's a good idea and then it gets formed around that. This was a good idea, and I don't think it ever fully formed, but I think the idea that they had and the parts of the movie that they initially thought about are good. I think the other things are kind of, like the plot, I think, are left wanting.
It's pretty meandering. They don't. I think the case that they're trying to solve is. I mean, it's like it's not secondary. It's not tertiary. Like whatever 4 or 5 is.
Auxiliary.
Is that what it is? Like
I don't know.
It is so not the point of the movie, and it goes off in so many different tangents. I think the thing between Alan Arkin and Valerie Harper, while funny because I think they have those two have interesting chemistry, it's like that is so unnecessary in this movie, I think, because it's trying to get us to care about this character a little more, when the way Arkin is playing, he's playing it, you could tell these two are having just the time of their life shooting this movie, right? And that's that's one of the pleasures of watching this. But when it tries to insert some of that seriousness, when it does at the end too, I really dislike that. But especially between the husband and wife thing, it's like that is not the point of this. The point of this is it's the streets of San Francisco. It's crashing a fuckload of cars.
It's hitting people. It's hitting marching bands. It's general chaos. That's what this movie is, right?
Chaos, yeah. Let's not, because the movie really dies. It loses its steam when we get to that point when he tries to confront his wife. While again, is funny, but it's so out of place and it kills the momentum of the movie. And like most of these scenes, I think Richard Rush, I don't really know the behind the scenes story of it, but I would assume he would just let the camera roll and kind of let the actors play, which again is fine.
That's what it looks like. That's for sure.
For God's sakes, we're talking 2 hours here. Like you could very well cut 15 to 20 minutes out of this and lose nothing.
You
literally
could lose the whole
nothing.
You could lose the Alan Arkin, Valerie Harper stuff completely.
Yeah.
And I think I agree. It's like this is his the way they're going to humanize him, which we don't really need in a buddy cop movie.
Exactly.
We don't need that.
They're already doing that every time they open their mouths.
He's so aggressive and angry, and it's just it's not making me like him more. So what's the point?
Sure.
I'm like, and it was interesting because I kind of figured, I'm like, this isn't going to be what he thinks it is. It's going to be, I'm planning your big surprise birthday party or whatever. But that's become kind of a trope these days. I don't know if it was so much of a trope back then, but it's like she's going to have an explanation for this. And he even gets on the phone and calls Freebie and says, hey, she's got an answer for everything. and that whole bit of him, the thing in the back of the closet's gone, and she's like, what thing? The thing. And I was like, oh Christ, let this scene end. This is driving me ape shit. And then it's her douchebag, and I love how she has it. She's given it a secondary life here as a watering her flower pot, and I'm just like, what was the point of all that? Again,
it's not bad. It's very funny, and I like their chemistry, but what the fuck is it doing in this movie?
And it's like 10 fucking minutes. It goes on.
Yeah. Way too long.
Just keeps going. There's like a momentary break where he goes and calls fucking James Caan. And he's like, all right, what do I do now? It's like, that's like 5-6 minutes into the scene. There's another 5 minutes afterwards. It's like, what the fuck? I don't, look, Alan Arkin sounds like a real pain in the ass to work with. Yeah.
And live with.
And just, it sounds like he needs conflict to be an actor. Fine. That's your way of working.
Oh, you mean in real life? Okay, I got you.
But I also think in real life and in the movie, I think this role that he's playing might be rather close to the person that Alan Arkin is in real life. But like, it's not, like you've said, Mark, it's not particularly charismatic. It's not particularly inviting. I don't want to stay with either one of them very long, but if I'm going to stay with either one of them, I'd rather them be together on screen. Because they play off, like, them together, they're better together than they are separately, I think, if that makes sense.
It felt, I don't know if it's just because we watched all those Rob Zombie movies, but...
Right!
But I had this thing with those movies is everybody's constantly yelling, like, this means I'm intense or something, and them in the car yelling at each other constantly. Maybe coming off the back of those Rob Zombie movies, I just wasn't in the mood for that. And it just gave me the same kind of feeling like we're just going to yell our lines at each other when we're supposed to be driving or tailing this guy and this and that. And it breaks the scenes for me. It's just like these two actors yelling at each other. And some of it's humorous, but a lot of it just kind of drove me nuts. But that Alan Arkin, Valerie Harper scene, if you compare it to the one scene that James Caan has with his lady, that was nice. That was pleasant. I was surprised at how loving their relationship seemed to be compared to the Valerie Harper stuff. And I was like, that's nice. That humanized him for me, made me care a little bit more about Freebie than I was. Because you expect, it's going to be that cop thing where they go home and they take everything out on their spouse or their partner. And it wasn't like that at all. And it was brief. Mm-hmm. And to the, short and sweet and get out of there. And okay, he's got a home life too. He appreciates that his girlfriend is smart, has a college education, is reading, T.E. Lawrence. And great. That gives me a little bit of character reference for him. The Alan Arkin stuff just seemed like just screaming mad people. Like, why are you married?
Fiery Latinos.
Yeah.
Come on.
Alan Arkin, the most convincing of Latinos.
Yeah, that whole Mexican thing was just bizarre. The first time James Caan said, and I don't know if you want to bleep these words out.
Go ahead. It's from you're quoting the movie. We know you're not a racist.
The first time, and I'm like, what? Did he just say that?
Yeah, he did.
He's supposed to be Mexican? I'm like, what is why
the
is
bean,
he Mexican?
Dude. The bean, get it?
Yeah, and then I'm like, the bean, I get it now.
I'm not sure I get it now, to be perfectly honest with you. They put a little bit of that dark concealer on Alan Arkin's face to make him look a little darker, and gave him some hair powder, and they were like, here, hair powder. Your hair's darker and your skin's darker. I mean, he's Mexican.
He's played an Armenian before in Catch-22. I don't know. He's probably played a Greek at some point.
That's a little bit more believable. I mean, I believe Alan Arkin's parents are of Jewish heritage, so...
Yeah, he's Jewish, yeah.
Yeah, so... the bean. When I realized it, because again, I realized what it was when I started watching the movie. I was like, oh, God. Christ.
So at some point, Freebie says spicks and gooks and spades at different points in the movie.
Yep, he sure does. So there's a lot of hate in this movie.
Well, I mean, not just towards other ethnicities, but then we get, as on IMDb, credited as the transvestite.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of LGBTQ hatred. They say fag a lot in this movie.
So much, and again, I know I'm watching a movie, so I, for better or worse, that sort of just rolls off my back, as a straight white man here, not having to worry about any of that. But
the most underrepresented of groups.
Also, I didn't see myself in Freebie and the Bean at all, you guys.
As a bisexual man, I really didn't see myself. Yeah. It's, again, this is one of those movies where there's nobody to cheer for. You're just these are all turds. All of them are turds. Turds all the way down.
It seemed like that was becoming the thing. And the way I call it the Dirty Harry complex. Dirty Harry comes out in 71. So now we'll have these cops that have these, I guess, goals, if we want to call them that they will achieve by any means necessary, which means, like you mentioned, plowing through a parade, shooting in crowded downtown streets.
Shooting in a skyscraper. The dentist's office is in a skyscraper.
Unloading 4 guns, 2 each, into a guy sitting in a stall that might not even be the guy that they were after.
Oh my God.
There's the murders that these 2 cops commit is so, they just treat it so flippantly.
Yeah.
It's and it's not, and then so they radio into Mike Kellen, who's their chief or whoever, and he's like, oh, you got him? Good job, guys. And then they move on. It's like, oh my God, you guys just fucking massacred this one dude, and then it's on to the next thing. And my thought process is, can we save some people for witnesses, or are we going to arrest anybody? Or are we just going to fucking kill everybody? Which again, it's fine. This movie, this is Chaos, the movie. And, it's just chaotic on the streets. It's chaotic in the bathrooms. It's chaotic, in Alan Arkin's home, in the Bean's home. And, having seen it, I don't know, half a dozen times now, it's I don't know. I really know what to expect, and I'm just along for the ride. But it still does, for me, lose its steam in that scene that we were talking about before between Valerie Harper and Alan Arkin, but also the Loretta Swit stuff, whom I love. I love Loretta Swit. But again, I understand, like, it's supposed to be, they try to shoehorn in, like, she's having an affair with Mike Kellen at the end. And I was
seemingly out of nowhere.
We don't need any of that. Like, because I had completely forgotten about the receipt by that point after 2 hours. Yeah. And it's like, oh, yeah, the receipt.
Right.
We don't need to call back to that. And so, there's another, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, between her stuff with her husband, the guy they're trying to protect, and then the stuff at the end. It's like, bless her heart, but what is she doing in here? We don't really need her.
Yeah. She has 2 scenes.
Right. But I love a good San Francisco movie.
Yeah.
And I would
argue, there with you on that.
I would argue this is the best San Francisco car chase movie. I think it's better than Bullet.
It had some pretty great car chases. It had some pretty, I was surprised at some of the stuff that was going on. I just watched the 7-Ups, which I think is around the same time, post French Connection, so car chases, and made by the producer of the French Connection. Mm-hmm. So insane car chases, and it makes me kind of scared. I'm like, all these cars on the street. Part of it is post MCU trauma, like realizing when I watched the first Avengers movie and thought, oh my God, there's people in these buildings. Thousands of people are dying right now. And I couldn't stop thinking about that. So every one of those movies now that has this realistic, catastrophic stuff, I kind of get stressed out, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're just from the beginning, James Caan is just driving like a maniac and almost hits some guy that's laying cement. Takes out all these cars, flips that truck with all the scotch in it, and I'm just going, The
stuntmen and women in this movie are.
It's so funny watching the marching band. Like, everybody is so padded up under, like, they're the bulkiest like high school marching band you've ever seen, because they're all wearing pads because God knows they're actually going to get hit by this car. But I do love the gag of the Bean putting on. He's like, it's helmet time. During that first car chase scene, he puts on his motorcycle. I thought that was pretty funny, but gosh, the destruction. I did zero research on this, but I would venture a guess John Landis might have in Blues Brothers might have harkened back to Freebie and the Bean a little bit, because there is so much. I can't think of another movie before this that had this much destruction, like during car chases.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't either. And like Mark mentioned, I was surprised at how much there was in this movie, because it's kind of unassuming. They don't even advertise on the poster or anything. The poster for this movie is something else entirely in and of itself, but they don't lead on that there's going to be car chases in this movie. At least not ones that you're like, at least not ones that we're talking about outside of, they're better than the movies deserves in a lot of ways, frankly. Like you were mentioning, Anthony, like there are other things that I would agree, Blues Brothers, it has to be. There's no way. It feels much too similar.
Yeah. I even wrote pretty great chase scene though, through downtown, that one famous tunnel, and I can't remember which. I've been through that tunnel. That train track scene when he skates, the guy they're chasing skates around the train, and then they jump it.
How close that first car, how close he cuts in front of that train. Every time I watch it, I'm just, my butt, I'm squeezing. I'm just like, oh my God, he is so like inches within that freaking engine.
Yeah. Well, if you see some of those stunts that they do with the people near the cars, there are some people that very narrowly don't get hit.
Yes.
Like by cars going 60 miles an hour. I was like, what the fuck is this movie? Couldn't make this shit anymore.
Like the Blues Brothers, and it just kept getting like that. And his motorcycle chase through that park and over cars, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
I could have done with more chase scenes and less banter between the two of them.
I love how Richard Rush was just like, we're not going to try to hide the fact that this is not James Caan. Like, there are near close-ups on the stunt man's face, driving the dirt bike, and it's like we're just going to show this cool thing because I mean that was Richard Rush's, like that was his milieu up, you know, through most of his career. But like, you know, Thunder Alley and all these like motorcycle and hot rod movies, the stuntman in the 60s, like he was all about, you know, big engines and cool cars and stuff. And so, you know, this was his thing. And those are the best scenes of the movie by far.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shot very well. And I didn't get confused, which was nice. So the editing.
Yeah.
And the construction of those scenes where I could follow. Even the foot chase scenes, like at the end when he's chasing the gal or the gal that was in the car, chasing her through the Super Bowl crowd, and I could follow it and keep track of it. I'm like, oh, okay. And it made sense that James Caan was able to keep up with her, and that sometimes gets left in the dust. And I was grateful for it because. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you can go, well, how did they catch up with them? Right. You know,
I like when Alan Arkin was chasing him through the kitchen. That was also good. That was good too.
Yeah, that kitchen fight was good.
So, yeah,
and then another like just whip out the gun, just murder the dude.
Yeah, right. Bang bang, right there on the grill,
and you hear that. Yeah, like. But then the other cop comes in and Alan Arkin's like, pull him off. I think he's still alive. But that, like, another great...
Like a foot chase scene.
Yeah, foot chase, but just the destruction in the kitchen and, like, the sauce everywhere.
Yeah.
Man,
he can't keep a hold of him. And he's keeps wriggling away. Yeah, no, like that. There's something to be said for that. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. And obviously, you know, the film is cinematography by Laszlo Kovacs. So... Yeah. You know, it's not like just some other dude behind the camera doing the cinematography, so it shows. It does feel in a lot of ways like this movie almost has too many good people associated with it for its own good, because I like knowing the people that are in it and the people that made it. Like, I wish it almost should have been better, right? Do you know what I mean? Like it has more potential than we see on screen, I guess, is probably.
I agree with that. And I noticed the IMDb stuff on the bottom there for the movie page, and I saw a lot of green splats, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And so I started reading them, and I was like, okay, so the tone is off. I don't mind that, like switching between the comical interactions of them and serious, you know, they're blasting people away. That doesn't bother me. I can handle that. But there were a few of those reviews that mentioned, you know, we spend way too much time with these two guys interacting and not enough on the story. And I, you know, having not watched it yet, I was like, oh, let's see how that pans out. Kind of have to agree with that assessment, because the story does it's almost like it's there for convenience. And I think this was based on a book, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious as to how the book plays out. And so James Caan and Alan Arkin were responsible for making it kind of comical, I guess, early on. And that, you know, a lot of the script changed. But that plot of they want to bust this hijacker, this guy that's, I guess, stealing these trucks full of scotch or whatever else he's doing.
Good old Cutty Sark.
They dig through his garbage to find some kind of evidence. They find that receipt. This leads them to arrest him for indecent exposure. He's messing with his pants in the park or whatever. So they want to get him in because they find out that there's a hit on him. So this is basically the plot of the story. They have to arrest him for something, otherwise he's going to get killed on Monday, and they won't be able to arrest him for the big stuff. And this doesn't go over well with the DA. Great Alex Rocco performance.
Just the best. Oh.
And then it's like, well, they're not going to hold him, but you guys have to now watch him. And I got really confused as to when they were watching him and when they weren't. And it seemed like a lot of those scenes just switched, like they're at home or they're off or whatever. And then all of a sudden they'd be together in the car and they're watching him do something. They're watching him throughout the movie. They watch him in the park again. They watch him get his haircut, I think, or go to the barber shop, the dentist scene. And all this while they're looking out for people, hitmen from Michigan. And it just, I don't know, it just kind of got messy throughout the movie. Like, are they on detail right now or are they not?
Right.
So that was one of the other things that kind of, if it hadn't been so focused on them kind of goofing on each other in the car, and maybe that would have been a little clearer, where we know, okay, now they're watching him do this. Now he's moving here. Now we're watching him do this, and have those potential hitmen come in, which, you know, we have a number of scenes of. Sometimes it's not a hitman. Sometimes it is. If it is, we're just going to blow him away in the bathroom stall at the bowling alley or at the dentist's office or whatever. Shoot an innocent nurse in the meantime, you know. So I don't know.
What I love is that, so I'm obsessed with 80s cop movies, and that's where they really perfected that, the buddy cop subgenre. And I think 48 Hours from 1982, Walter Hill's 48 Hours, is the first, in my opinion, great example of this is how you do a perfect buddy cop movie, where you get the relationship between the two. We care about each of those guys, Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, enough for what we need in the movie, and it's not bloated. It's under 2 hours. You know, it's just over 90 minutes. And so here we are. I think we're in the early stages of this. And so in some respect, it's kind of cool to be able to watch Freebie and the Bean and see this is sort of the birth of that buddy cop, and they're trying to figure it out. And you can see how bloated you can feel how bloated it is, and be like, this, like, we don't need to go this far with these two guys. And so, 10 years later, we really perfected, or 8 years later, we really perfected with 48 Hours. So I think in that respect, it's really interesting to kind of see them work out and see the birth of this kind of buddy cop subgenre. So that's, as someone who is obsessed with those types of movies, I find it fascinating seeing what works, what doesn't work, what stuck, even now, 40 years later, 50 years later, that we see in buddy cop movies. But I like to see some flailing and some failing. And there is a lot of that in Freebie and the Bean, but I will say I love those parts too. I love this movie, like, as a whole, very, very much.
Well, and I think to your point, I mean, it makes sense that the person that would take this kind of budding subgenre and turn it into what it is now would be Walter Hill. Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because he almost is uniquely qualified. For whatever reason, the man just understands that kind of movie. Right. And, what's funny to me is, like you've mentioned, Anthony, you like this movie for the good and the bad. And I enjoyed this movie a lot. And I enjoyed this movie a lot for a similar reason that you do. I like to see where things came from and how far they aren't from being where they would end up. Because they're pretty close already. Like, this is shockingly close already to, like, what we would consider to be even a contemporary buddy cop movie. Yeah. It still has a lot of the same things you would expect. It has some of the things that I think are almost uniquely suited to films from the mid-'70s. I think of this movie, I mean, obviously this movie's made 8 years later, and it is more successful. Mm-hmm. But this movie being made when it was, I feel like they had to add some of the things that they did. I don't know. It felt a little bit trying to be... They still were trying to hang on to some of the highbrow, American cinema, new American cinema stuff a little bit. Yeah. And, I mean, look, I get it, but I just don't think it has any place in this movie. And clearly, in this movie it does, but in this genre, that subgenre as a whole, I think that's a little bit harder to approach to make a serious buddy cop movie. I'm not sure that's... I don't know. I think buddy cop movies lend themselves more to lightheartedness than they do
Oh, absolutely.
inherently very serious, right?
Right. I think Lethal Weapon does the best job at kind of riding that border of serious and funny.
You're talking just the first one, though, right?
First and the second one leans way more into the comedy, but the first one especially like really borders that.
That is the only one that I
serious.
have seen. So
Okay, number 2 is good. The 3 and 4 are trash. Absolutely.
okay,
trash.
yeah, that's what Mike White said as well. He almost suggested I not watch the second one, but the second one has a lot of the stuff that I knew about Lethal Weapon before I watched it, like the diplomatic immunity.
Yeah,
like
it's all right.
That thing.
Yeah.
But it looked like, just from the trailer, it looked like more of a comedy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But this is a comedy. I think Freebie and the Bean is a comedy, but not the same way Lethal Weapon 1 is funny. They're not funny in the same way.
Correct.
Have either of you seen Busting with Elliot Gould,
Elliot Gould. No, I have
and
not.
Robert Blake? So this is the movie that I was referring to earlier that comes out the same year, and I think the release of this got pushed back because they were so similar. Real similar idea. They're, I think, Vice Squad cops, and they're going after a mobster and basically tailing him, kind of like, this scenario. And, I'm trying to remember where it takes place now. I think it's L.A.
It's L.A. Yeah, Busting is L.A.
Very similar, though, idea. And that one I think I prefer a little bit more than this. Than Freebie and the Bean. If you get a chance, watch it, though. I think you find it's an interesting coincidence that these two were coming out around the same time.
Yeah.
And, they're going after a mobster, got to tail him. There's a shootout at a dentist office. There's a scene in a dentist office. There's a scene in a market where they're, indiscriminately shooting at a bad guy that's shooting back. And I think they handle that stuff a little better in Busting, where it's like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be doing this, but he's shooting at us, and they're actually trying to get people out of there and move them out of the way, and not just fire down a busy street in the middle of downtown San Francisco. But
Freebie don't give a fuck.
It's the same kind of idea. Same kind of idea.
And it's Peter Hyams movie, and he directed The Relic. So
there's a lot of great people in it. Sid Haig and
Sid. I heard Sid Haig is in some really good movies. I heard Sid Haig's final film of his career is a real showstopper. God. The buddy cop movies for me are kind of an underserved genre. I haven't watched a whole lot of them. On the first episode we did this month, I joked about the fact that the only buddy cop movie I'd really seen was Rush Hour. So, but I mean, to be fair, that's not a bad one, though.
No, Rush Hour's great. I love Rush Hour.
But it's not great to be the only one that you've seen, given that 48 Hours and Lethal Weapon exist. And I guess technically the other buddy cop movie I had seen, is National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon.
It counts.
I mean, that movie's great. I mean, it kind of ruined Lethal Weapon 1 for me, because I was like, this movie's... Where were some of the things I was expecting? And I was like, oh, that was a Loaded Weapon 1 thing. That was not a Lethal Weapon thing.
So what else is going on this month? What other movies are you doing?
48 Hours and...
See, I still need to see that, too.
Oh, you've never seen 48 Hours either?
I've never watched it.
Great.
I've never watched Beverly Hills Cop either.
Oh,
wow. Okay. Okay. I've seen that movie. That movie's okay. I don't remember.
I caught a good chunk of it the other day on TV, but I think it's kind of an underseen subgenre for me as well when I think about it.
Showdown in Little Tokyo.
I haven't seen that one, but I need to, because Dolph Lundgren's penis is in there, I guess.
Whoa.
And I think is it Brent? It's not Brandon Lee, is it? Who's the?
I think it is. Isn't it?
Like they're going to the bathroom in urinals, and he looks over. There's some gag about how big Dolph Lundgren's penis is, so that's gotta see it.
Great.
What's the one with Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson? I've seen that one.
Oh, Shanghai Noon.
Shanghai Noon.
Is that a buddy cop movie?
Shanghai Noon.
I mean, well, Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights.
Okay.
Is that a buddy cop?
I don't know.
Yes, it's the buddy cop convention.
Yeah.
It's the trope.
In the Old West.
I mean, I like that movie. I like that movie more than I like Rush Hour.
Gosh, I haven't seen either in so long.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Shanghai Nights is fun. Shanghai Nights is fun. And, for what it is. It's got, the fuck is that actor, British actor from Game of Thrones? He's the villain. And he plays high-collared British bullshit the entire movie. It's great. I don't know what it is about buddy cop movies and them kind of being an underserved genre, but for me, it's like I've just never gravitated towards them.
Yeah, I don't know why either.
But, I guess I like that Starsky and Hutch movie's pretty good.
I don't think I've watched that all the way through either.
Are you laughing because you agree or because you think I'm insane?
I'm glad you like a movie.
Yeah. I mean, of all the Todd Phillips movies to like, there are much worse ones. Much less competent films.
Sure.
Yeah, like Old School or Joker, for that matter. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is about buddy cop movies, because I had never seen Lethal Weapon either, so...
Yeah, well, I think the buddy cop trope, like you were talking about Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights, has been translated then into non-cop movies.
Right.
But trace it back, and it begins with cop movies around the time of Freebie and the Bean. I'm not saying Freebie and the Bean is the impetus for that trope, but it's the same. It's around the same era, the same time. And so it's really cool when you watch movies like Busting, like Freebie and the Bean, even not French Connection, because that's more about the crime than it's more about the mystery than the buddy cop thing. But like, Busting and Freebie and the Bean, that's sort of the birthplace for that trope, which has been translated into like thousands of movies since, and hundreds of great movies since. So it's I think it's really special when you think about that, when you're watching movies, older movies, and you think, my favorite example is the romantic comedy It Happened One Night. Like that is where the tropes for modern romantic comedies come from. And so you think about that when you watch an old movie like It Happened One Night, and you're thinking, oh my God, like that's what they do in modern rom-coms, which is not a favorite genre of mine, but I think it's a good example. It's the same with Freebie and the Bean. You're watching that thinking, holy shit, there are some really terrific movies that I love within the past, 10, 20 years that were born because of Freebie and the Bean. So that's really cool when you think about that.
Yeah, I'm sitting here this whole time trying to think of something prior to this that would be relatable in that same sense of two cop partners doing this kind of thing. And I don't know, I can't think of it. I can't think of like a 60s movie where that's the case. It usually was, like you mentioned Bullet earlier, Anthony. It's, it's a lone cop, Dirty Harry. And even then that was really just introduced in the late 60s. Another good buddy cop movie that I just came up with in my head is Running Scared. That's a good one.
Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines.
Yeah, you got Joey Pants in there.
Good. God, that is such a great movie. Great movie.
Still at the point where they're shooting indiscriminately into crowds and, not caring about the safety of normal people on the street. I used to watch that all the time.
I'm thinking maybe Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
That's what I was thinking.
Western buddy comedy.
Maybe that's where the trope was born.
I'm just trying to
translated into cops, definitely with Freebie and the Bean.
The only thing I could get thinking of was Dragnet, like a TV show, and that's just because it's two guys. It's obviously not. They're not really buddies.
I thought you were talking about the movie.
No, the movie's good too, though.
The movie is amazing.
I love the movie. Yeah,
the movie is great. City of Crime.
But I'm like racking my brain here throughout this whole discussion, trying to think what is the origin, if not these movies from 1974.
I think it is these. I think there's, like Anthony said, maybe Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. But again, like, maybe it was just when they were like, we could pair two actors who are as charismatic as one another against each other.
Yeah.
Like that is the thing, right? Like that's the moment. That's the genesis, as they would say in Star Trek. Genesis. The genesis of that idea is two as opposed to one charismatic actor, it's two. And there it is.
Right.
I mean, there it is.
That, don't connect really well, that have different ways. One's by the book, the whole thing.
Right. And
one's
then it's
crazy.
One's by
the
it
book.
Just works.
One's older. Blah blah blah.
One's Tom Hanks, one's Dan Aykroyd,
right? Or Mel Gibson and Danny Glover.
One's Pat Morita, one's Jay Leno.
Yeah.
as you do.
Okay, Collision Course. It's a piece of shit, but entertaining. But I have this GIF that I had made of the movie, and it's when I mean, it's probably Pat Morita that does it, but like he jump kicks and like flies through the air through the windshield and like kicks the driver in the head. It's like the most ridiculous thing, but I'm like, this is why I love these movies. Sorry.
I was just gonna say there's another one with James Caan too that we're forgetting about.
Oh right, isn't
Alien Nation?
Yeah,
and Mandy Patinkin. No, it's a great 80. That's it's
a buddy cop movie.
Neon Badges. That's what I call them. So I'm looking through my movies, my list of movies that I've seen, crime films from the 70s, and it's Freebie and the Bean. Like out of the hundreds of these 70s crime films that I've seen, Freebie and the Bean it looks like it's the earliest of that buddy cop trope. So
Busting might have come out before then, but you haven't seen it yet.
I mean, same year, right?
Yeah, same year. I mean, probably competing studios.
Yeah, I think
one doesn't have a murderer in them, Mark. Okay.
Yeah, well,
I'm in your house.
Are we sure about that? James Caan is a sketchy motherfucker.
He is. He is Sonny Corleone.
You could watch Elf and still say, oh yeah, this is Freebie or this is Sonny Corleone.
Yeah, James Caan is the same man he's always been.
He's the same in Alien Nation, and it works in that because of the idea. I mean, we're basically using aliens as the other here, and it goes into xenophobia and nationalism and all that stuff. And he's kind of perfect for that. I don't think it was something that he really wanted to do. And that's kind of how I felt about this. I'm like, were these guys on board for this, or is this just, I need to pay my mortgage on my Malibu.
That's what Arkin said about the movie. He's like,
it doesn't surprise me.
Movie was a piece of shit and it was a paycheck. Like, okay, bro. Alan Arkin, you need to calm down, bro.
Hindsight is 2020.
I think, Mark, you're just giving yourself a reason to start the James Caan cast. All James Caan. You could cover Mickey Blue Eyes. That's another great James Caan performance. I love that movie. That's another weird... That's a movie that exists at a weird time and space that it could not exist in anymore.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. James Caan is just... He's great in everything. He's playing the same character in every movie, really.
He is. Real quick, I'm sorry, Mark, but... the running joke on my show is Sterling Hayden a good actor? And my friend Vinny had made a good point. He said whether he's good or bad, he plays the same character, and he made a 60-year career out of that. So good for him. Same goes for James Caan. Now, like, I wouldn't shit all over James Caan as I do Sterling Hayden, as much as I do like Sterling Hayden. Like James Caan, maybe it's because he's still alive and the man scares me.
Even now at 88, he could still kick your fucking ass as he could kick mine.
He would punch my face in, out the back of my fucking head. But, it's the same thing, man. Like, is James Caan a good actor? Maybe not, but he's made this long ass career out of playing this character really well. So good for him.
And he's just playing himself, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think you get to a certain point, and that's how it feels. And
The
that's
screen persona reflects the persona in reality.
That's why I love him in Misery. That used to be the one
That's
drawback.
different. Yeah.
That used to be the one drawback for me for that movie was him being in it, and I didn't realize it for a long time. Like, it would take me a while to realize, I don't necessarily like this actor, but then because he doesn't really fit the part. You don't think of him as someone that's writing romance novels, basically, is what the Misery series is that he's famous for. But it ends up being kind of perfect because he is trapped by this woman and is bedridden for 98% of the movie, and he doesn't get to be gruff, but it's always there under the surface. That tough guy, gruff asshole is always there, whether it's just me thinking it's there because that's how I think of him, or if it's kind of part of the character, it doesn't really matter because he gets to do a lot more in that. He gets to at least feign being emotional and being at her mercy, and which he is, but he also kind of pretends at points in the movie. So it's sort of a perfect casting choice. I finally came to realize.
So I was looking through the James Caan movies I've seen. There are 12 of them, and Lady in a Cage, which is a great Walter Grauman movie starring Olivia de Havilland. It's a good, tight little thriller if you haven't seen it. He's in that. He's playing the character we know now. But 5 years later, he's in Francis Ford Coppola's first or second movie, The Rain People, where it's a straight drama, and he's playing this sort of mentally handicapped guy. He was a football player, took one too many hits to the head, and now he's different, and a completely different character than you've ever seen him play. He's not gruff. He's very childlike. And I remember watching that for the first time a couple years ago thinking, holy shit, James Caan can act differently than what we normally see him do. But that might be the only movie in his extensive filmography where he does something completely different.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other. I know he can handle comedy.
He's very funny,
decently.
I mean, in the James Caan sort of way.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just not my favorite dude to watch.
That's really interesting. And I would never argue with someone saying, I don't care for this actor or actress. But I've never heard anyone say, James Caan, not my guy.
Yeah, it's kind of like George C. Scott when we talked about hardcore. I like George C. Scott for the most part, but sometimes when he's playing a certain character, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I can say the same thing about James Caan, where it just feels like deep down inside, I think my brain just thinks he's an asshole in real life, and it bothers me. I don't know why. I can't. It's hard. The one movie where I completely separate that out of my head is when I watch Misery.
Interesting.
I had to watch Misery at some point.
It's one of the better Stephen King adaptations.
And I think Rob Reiner is, people don't think of him as a great director, but it's one of his showcases. I think he directs the hell out of that movie.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a bottle movie. There's two people in one location.
Right.
And he makes it and granted, he's got great source material, but he directs the hell out. He makes it riveting. He makes it fun to watch. Kind of like how Mike, of course, I haven't rewatched it since it came out, but Mike Flanagan did with Gerald's Game, which was the Stephen King story that nobody wanted to touch because they didn't know how to do that. But I think Flanagan did a great job. But you think Misery did it before him. Yeah. So
very true. Very, very similar storylines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody trapped on a bed.
Just not James Caan.
Just not James Caan. I'd rather watch Carla Gugino than James Caan any day.
Although that degloving. Oh wow, man, that makes my crotch hurt thinking about it.
Oh man. And he does
Gross.
something very similar in Dr. Sleep, which I didn't realize until I watched it a second time the other day. Like, oh my God, this guy in hand trauma. What the fuck?
I should rewatch Dr. Sleep at some point.
I got to
Good.
take a day off.
It's good until
Take
the
a
end.
day off. Take a day off. Jesus
How long
Christ.
is it? 19 hours, right?
Yeah, three fucking hours, I think. Is that how long? it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
3 something, I think, the
Good.
director's cut, which is the only cut I've watched. But
No, it was good. It was. I typically, don't watch many new movies, but that one was. It was good.
so can we talk about the whole Loretta Swit, the lieutenant, whatever his name is, deal that pops up at the very end of the movie?
That's so
You mean in the
ridiculous.
last 5 minutes of the movie?
She's literally in 2 scenes, right? Unless I'm totally zoned out and missed her.
No, you
in
didn't
the
zone
movie.
out.
She's in the beginning when they go to his house, when they go to Myers, Red Myers, the bad guy that they're trying to nail, go to his house. She's there. And then she shows up at the end at the Super Bowl and lets out that she basically set up her husband, planted the receipt that they found to get him caught and put away so that she could have an affair with the lieutenant. And I'm like, it would have been nice to have some hint of this through the film, right? I mean, is it just me or is that just completely out of left field?
No, it's. I'm with you, but it's also so unnecessary that we just don't need it. It is so out of the blue. And again, I like Mike Kellen. He's most well known as the kind of main counselor from or the camp director from Sleepaway Camp.
Yes.
And he was a great stage actor too. And he's got he's so, Mike Kellen when you see him, and he's very funny in this, kind of always, primping and, cutting his mustache and taking, he wants to be in front of the cameras and everything. But again, does he even need to be in this movie?
Right. And he's barely in it to begin with. And
again, that tag, not even a tag, but just that little thing with Loretta Swit at the end, he says, I was in love with her. And it's like, what? No, why? Where? Huh? What is this?
All off screen, bro.
All off screen.
Right.
And it doesn't impact the story. Her setting him up is one thing, but doing it because of an affair with the lieutenant, it's like, what does it matter why she did it?
Right.
Does this need to connect somehow to another character in the story?
And again, I think the setup is also unnecessary. They were digging through the trash. Yeah, sure, they found the receipt. Why not?
Right. Yeah.
They did the work and found. I'll tell you what. I think my favorite scene in the whole movie, though, is when they first sit down with Alex Rocco. And Alex Rocco, one of my all-time favorite character actors. But, he's at this point in his career, he's playing these, of course, I mean, almost every performance he does, but like these big, speaking of George C. Scott, big, brash, just like energy level through the roof, almost always yelling. And the part where, and those two kind of talking, interrupting each other and talking over each other, and they're looking at each other, they're looking confused, and then he goes, "Okay, sit down." And they're already sitting. He goes back to him, he says, "I want you two to sit down. Are you sitting?" And they look at each other, and like it's a really long, almost uncomfortably long, but perfect pause of them just being like, "What do we do?" And they just sort of shift in their chair.
Yeah.
It is so goddamn funny. And again, it doesn't work unless it's Alex Rocco and Alan Arkin and James Caan. Like, it has to be those three working together. And I would imagine that was another one of those instances where Richard Rush was just like, roll film and go. Just play around with it.
Yeah.
Doing the Paul Feig thing.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for Ghostbusters. Everybody loved Ghostbusters 2016. So I don't know why more people aren't doing it. I don't understand. It works when you know what you're doing.
Right.
When it's little things, not when it's just ad-libbing bullshit.
Whole scenes. Yeah, not whole scenes.
Not ad-libbing
Just riff
bullshit
and we'll
for 10 minutes.
piece it together.
I did. We haven't really talked about it as we kind of come towards the end of this episode. A transvestite killer movie, really? Yikes!
Yeah, which I was
We're
surprised
going
about.
all
I'm
the
like,
way there, huh?
It took me a minute to realize that was the guy from the tub.
In the bathtub.
And I think they were doing ADR for the voice, I believe, in the car. I think.
Yes.
It was really well done. Whether it was the actor or not, I don't know, but it was really well done. If it was ADR, it was like perfect.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound, tin canny or anything.
I think that was for real because Chris Morley became a Marilyn Monroe impressionist later.
It could have been.
So,
but then he breaks out of it later. So I wasn't. That was what kind of confused me.
Yeah.
A little bit of overkill.
Guy.
A little bit of
guy,
overkill
but a little
on
bit
that.
much, yeah.
And I, trivia on the IMDb said that that was one of the things that was cut for the UK release of this film was the overkill. So James Caan shoots him twice, and there's kind of a pause, and it looked like on the version that I was watching, sort of like there was a little bit of an optical switch there.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they pieced it back together from different prints or something in the version I watched. But it ends after those two shots for the UK release. Huh. And in this, he unloads like 5 more bullets into the guy and just shoots him up into the air. And I mean, it was one of the times when I thought, yeah, we probably could have done with just the 2 shots.
Yeah, it's one of those scenes where you don't know if the over the topness is supposed to be comical or not, because like there's parts where he's getting the shit beat out of him, and like they stop so he can, I don't know, adjust or whatever, stand back up, but then she roundhouse kicks him again, like a reverse roundhouse kick, and it's funny, but I didn't find myself laughing because it's like everything is being, it seems so serious at this moment, and I still can't tell if it's supposed to be funny or not. And it doesn't work because it loses steam, because we have a buddy cop comedy movie full of like destruction in the city streets, and then it dies on this foot chase, which the continuity is good, the editing is great, we never lose our place, we know what's happening, but it drags on,
right?
And that that UK cut sounds terrific, pop done,
right?
Yeah,
I think for time and just for like, oh, this seems unnecessary. I mean, they've done it already with the guy in the bathroom stall unloading. They're both holding 2 guns and unload on him. But the fact that it's this transvestite character seems a little loaded to me. I did like the fight though. I was like, oh, this is kind of like ballet and karate, and she's kicking James Caan's ass right now. This is kind of great. Taking off the makeup and removing the eyelashes, fixing the stockings and things in between.
Again, like the way you're describing it sounds hysterical to me, but when you're watching it, it's not
funny.
No, and I think that's more, because of the time and the place that this was made, as in the 70s, and it's a joke. This character is the butt of the joke, and the joke is, I'm going to unload 7 shots into them.
Would it have worked better, you think, made in an 80s buddy cop movie?
Oh, probably not.
I think yes, I actually do, because they would have played the cross-dressing thing up more. I don't even think they would go transvestite. Yeah. I think they just would have gone cross-dresser, and they would have really not the Naked Gun level of parody,
but just right underneath it.
Right. I think they would have really played the comedy of it a lot more. And here, again, like I said, the way Mark described it sounds hysterical. I can see that happening in an 80s movie, but here it was all just so serious. And it happens like after we think the Bean is dead, he got shot.
Which comes out of fucking nowhere.
Again, like,
yeah, because that's not funny.
Yeah,
like, I
that mixture of the tone is what
so
a lot of people
weird.
had a problem with.
Again, the very last part, like in the ambulance, he's like, I need a taco right now.
Yeah.
I think it like is funny in and of itself, but like how serious they played it before, it is so juxtaposed with the comedy of the end part. It just does not work. It doesn't land. Again, it's funny, but my God, it does not land at all.
Yeah, I think that the tone shifts are problematic in the film.
Yeah.
Which is apparently what people had, a lot of the reviewers had a problem with. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes I don't even notice the tonal shifts in films like that. But you could feel it here.
Oh,
and then even with them
like
starting to
Whiplash
argue
here.
again in the ambulance and crash and stuff, I'm like, oh, we're going back to that at the end of the fucking movie.
Right.
Can we stop with the yelling and the destruction?
Yeah, I think like making everybody think he's dead, like that part of the story, I think is so unnecessary. He's shot. Okay, let's just say he got shot. He's fine, and then they can start bickering again, like the married people they have been. But like thinking he's dead because they got like James Caan, Freebie is almost, he's in tears, thinking, "Oh my God, like this guy, he's dead. My partner is dead." And it does not work. Again, like maybe on paper and saying it out loud sounds like it would work, but watching it, it did not. It fell hard like a brick.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It's oddly unneeded, and I think it grinds the movie to a halt there at the end.
Absolutely,
it's just like this isn't funny. The only other movie that I can think of that has a transvestite killer in it is
Dressed to Kill.
Well,
De Palma.
And Ace Ventura. I'm sorry, but that's it. Like it's like that level of like it's not something. I'm glad it's not something that's done all the time because it's not in good taste.
No, it's very distasteful.
Yeah. Looking at you, J.K. Rowling, or whatever your her fucking pen name is.
I gotta say, but Ace Ventura, mighty fucking funny.
I mean, it's a good movie. That's the problem. I don't care what Roger Ebert says. I love both those those are the best Jim Carrey performances as far as I'm concerned. Like,
I am with you 100%. Yeah.
That second movie's great.
It is so good. But I mean, yeah, even like the reveal at the end of Ace Ventura when he turns Sean Young around and like lifts up her dress and you see the bulge and like everybody's like scraping their tongues. It's very fucking funny. It's in horrible
and it is
taste.
funny.
It's in horrible taste, but my God, is it funny?
But the thing is, to your point from before, you just described it, and when you see it, it is funny.
Right.
In this movie, those things we've been describing should be funny.
Right.
And like you can imagine them being funny in another context, but not in this movie.
Yeah.
This movie's just tonal whiplash. And again, like we keep running into these movies, I don't dislike them. It's just I think I enjoy them more the second or third time I watch them because I think the tonal whiplash kind of goes away after a while because you just kind of expect it.
Yeah.
The first or second time you watch it, you're not necessarily expecting it.
Sure.
But afterwards, you're like, okay, I know now where this is going.
True. I do remember watching Freebie and the Bean for the first time, and I did love it. But I remember by the end of it, I was like, this should have ended like 20 minutes ago. They didn't need there's so much unnecessary shit in here. And I still feel like that. But I also still love this movie because, there's so much. It's the birth of something that I really love, and that is the 80s cop movie.
Right.
So I think that's where it really falls. It falls into that camp of this is sort of the impetus of the thing that I'm obsessed with now.
I was going to say, Anthony, final thoughts on Freebie and the Bean, but you kind of already gave them. Look at that. You just fucking beat me to it. What about you, Mark Begley? Final thoughts on Freebie and the Bean?
And I think the tone shifts might work better with different actors. I'm just going to lay that out there. It might have worked throughout the whole movie and even with that ending with a couple of different actors in those roles. I don't know. Maybe like Elliot Gould and Robert Blake. I'm just saying.
Pacino and Jim Cazale.
Hey, whoever, it's possible. It's possible.
I mean, they were trying to get Pacino and James Caan in this movie together anyways. Like, They offered one of the roles to Pacino, and he wanted too much money. So could you have seen Caan and Pacino in this? Like, wouldn't that have made sense?
Pacino and the Bean? No.
Yeah.
Caan and the Bean. I think I was expecting that I would like this a little bit more than I did. Still enjoyed it, and I will most likely watch it again at some point. And maybe knowing that it's kind of a mess and tonally off, it won't bother me as much the second go around. I don't know.
You know, as I'm sitting here thinking about what I wanted to say, I want to see the movie where it's Pacino and Caan. Because can you imagine, like, Caan having to hold, like, a rabid little bulldog Pacino back as he's playing this, like, dickhead character? Well, I mean, isn't that more exciting than Alan Arkin just, like...
Screaming.
Unbelievably not being Mexican, though this movie... Okay. I'm with you guys. I like this movie a lot. It's, like you mentioned, Anthony, it's interesting to see where this all kind of comes from and kind of what the beginning of this really popular subgenre is. But it's also interesting to see two actors playing off one another that I'm not sure how many other movies they were in together. As leads, none, probably.
Yeah,
so
right.
Yeah, probably not.
So there's that. So that is probably, for me, the best part of this movie is just seeing them two interact. Because they're both actors that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
So
Same.
So there is that. But, I think overall it's way too long. 20 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're sitting and watching the movie, it is.
Yeah.
And it feels it. It's one of those movies where it definitely feels way too long. So, but other than that, I liked it. I'm glad that we kind of all had a different experience with this movie prior to watching it for this, because... Yeah, if we were all like, we've never seen this before, it's like, uh-oh. I mean, our opinions would not be any less valid.
Right.
Cut the Valerie Harper stuff and cut the stuff with that guy from Texas. That whole scene.
The guy from Texas. I don't know. That guy from Texas irrelevant. Shit was pretty great.
It was fun.
It's like fucking Mongo from Blazing Saddles. It's that same level of just like unbridled Southern power.
It served no purpose. We already knew these things about these characters.
Other than Alan Arkin just continuing to reinforce why he's a fucking dirty cop by just beating up people. God, anyway. Jesus. So on that note, let's take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Culture Cast of May.
For over 400 years, they've developed their own mysterious traditions. For over 400 years, they've had a strict code of honor and unparalleled standards of respect. For over 400 years, they have terrorized the streets of Japan. Now, they want to control the city of Los Angeles. Determined to leave their mark in blood. Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee are ready for a showdown in Little Tokyo. They're two LA cops who are hungry for a little takeout. Dolph Lundgren, Brandon Lee. Showdown in Little Tokyo.
Sorry, the next Culture Cast will be talking about Dolph Lundgren's penis in Showdown in Little Tokyo.
Yeah.
Or Showdown in Big Lundgren.
Big Tokyo.
Big Tokyo, maybe. I don't know. Until then, Anthony, where could people find you when you're not here?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at AKDonley. That's AKDonelly. And then my podcast, Cult Movies Pod. Podcast is at Cult Movies Pod on Twitter and Instagram as well.
What about you, Mr. Begley? What keeps you up at night?
Thinking that Alan Arkin's playing a Mexican keeps me up at night. Why? Were there no Latino actors?
No, Freebie and the Bean.
I still want to say the whole thing, but I won't. You can find me at wakeupheavy.com or on social media at wakeupheavy. I do not have a separate one for my personal stuff because I am the podcast and the podcast is me.
That's pretty good. I thought it was just because you wanted to say all your racism in the privacy of a burner Twitter account.
No, that way I can be woke.
It's Freebie and the Beg. That's what it is. As for me, you can find me at cstachiw.com, cstachiw.com. That's my link tree for all the things I work on, because I talk about a lot of 70s police stuff. Coincidentally, Barney Miller and Columbo and Kolchak, which was kind of police adjacent because he killed people with Wanted Abandoned too, didn't he? As for this show, culturecast.com, patreon.com/culturecast, all the places you could go if you wanted to support the show outside of just listening. So, Anthony, Mark, thank you so much for joining me about a movie that one of you apparently liked and the other one had never seen. So, it's a good chemistry on this episode. Yeah. So, we'll catch you guys on the next episode.